Okay, thanks everybody. Hi, my name's Eileen. I am a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet, write them down, commit them to my sponsor, don't eat in between no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in the world to me. I've been abstinent this time back since January 25th, 2015. And thank you, Linda, for asking me to qualify. I haven't done that in a while. And yeah, so it feels good. It feels good to be asked. It feels good to do it. I was just, while people were doing the readings, I was just saying the prayer I always try to remember to say, which is, God, give me the thoughts in my head and the words in my mouth. So then I don't have to fret about what comes out, right? So my abstinent date is January 25th, 2015. My first abstinent date was July 17th, 1995. And I think I do want to share about that whole thing um, because it's really important to me. So, just briefly, what it was like when I was in the food was everything to me. And also, what my body looked like was everything to me. And so mostly I was unhappy with the way I looked because I ate a lot of sugars, grains, carbohydrates. And those were the only foods I was really interested in eating. Um, when I was on a diet, which was often, I would not eat those foods. I would eat proteins and rabbit food, and um, everything tasted dry and sour and just yucky diet food. And I could lose weight on a diet easily, but I never intended to eat what I was eating on the diet for the rest of my life. I just wanted to see the right number on the scale, and and once I did, then I would go to eating the sugars, grains, and carbohydrates that I always wanted. And so I would gain the weight back. So I was a yo-yo person, up and down. In the beginning, I started dieting with my mom. In the beginning, it was 5 pounds up and down. Then it was 10 pounds. Then it was 15 pounds up and down. Then it was always more up and not quite enough down. And that's what started to happen. So I was, and and my downfall really was when I got pregnant, because everybody in my family, once they got pregnant, they never got their thin body back. And that's what I just thought was going to happen to me. So, um, my daughter is now 40 years old, but when she was a little one, our next door neighbor, I still had a lot of the pregnancy weight, and I was just growing and growing and growing. And the lady next door was really obese, and she seemed to lose 100 pounds overnight. But of course, that didn't happen, but it probably happened over the winter. And I asked her how she did it, and she told me she went to Overeaters Anonymous, and she took me to a meeting. And at that Overeaters Anonymous, and this was back in 1980 something, 87 or something, or six, or at that meeting, they used the gray sheet food plan. That's all they used at that particular meeting. And so I lost, gray sheet food really works for me. It always has worked for me. And so I lost like 40 pounds in 4 months, the first 20 pounds of the first month. I mean, I was young, and it just fell off me. And I wasn't hungry. That's what I remember. I wasn't hungry. But once I got to that goal weight, and they said, okay, now it's time for maintenance, and we need to reintroduce you to grains. First of all, grains and I never needed a reintroduction. I would never forget that. I would never forget the taste of it. Couldn't wait till maintenance. But what happened was I lost the weight. I started to weigh and measure those other things, and all of a sudden I wasn't interested in calling my sponsor. I wasn't interested in going to meetings. I had this down. Thank you very much. You even said I was on maintenance. I'm fine. And so for the next 8 or 9 years, um, I was just eating like crazy, and trying to control it, and remembering that I had admitted that I was a compulsive eater for a few months, going to these meetings, but it just didn't feel real to me. And it's like I put the whole thing in a shoebox and put it all of the recovery that I had, I just put it in the closet. And then I started in AA, and in AA, I found that it was really easy to be sober compared to the food. I mean, they said, "Did you drink today?" And I said, "No, but my marriage is falling apart, and I think they're going to take my daughter away from me, and and they said, "But if you didn't drink, that was a good day." And I really liked AA. I really liked that low bar. and and I was able to stay sober, and I was grateful for the sobriety. But they in those days, they said, this was 1990, they said, just eat a little something sweet. If you have a craving, just have some. Anyway, so that doesn't work. So I was gaining weight in AA and feeling miserable, left my husband, and I was really shocked to find that I didn't get immediately happy. I really thought he was the problem, and I got rid of him. So, but now I had a daughter, and we did joint custody, and I was miserable and broke. I was broke. He insisted on keeping the house and staying in the house. I didn't ask for child support because felt guilty for leaving. And somehow, oh, I got to do the steps out of the big book in AA, and I got to see how much food played a part in all of my resentments and fears and my sex conduct. Everything was about food and eating, and I never saw that in black and white before. So I started to remember that I had been a compulsive eater, that I still was, but I actually had called myself a compulsive eater, and I was actually experiencing some recovery. So I went back to an OA meeting, but they were talking about slips, and they used abstinence as a tool of recovery. And I just thought, oh my God, a tool? That would be like saying sobriety is a tool of AA. I don't think so. So anyway, I got into my car after about 15 minutes in that meeting, drove across the river in Cambridge to the mother house, went to the 10 o'clock gray sheet meeting. I knew about it. I knew about gray sheet, but I just thought, you people are crazy. You're really rigid. I'm not that bad. And all of a sudden, here I am crying and sitting in the meeting and listening to somebody, I think it was Judy Mack, tell her story. And I just couldn't stop crying. Somebody offered to sponsor me. That wasn't July 17th. That was July 15th, 1995. And Monday, July 17th was my very first abstinent day. It was also the day I took my name back, my maiden name back legally. And anyway, so I was abstinent for nearly 20 years and got abstinent in Cambridge. So I got to go to meetings all the time. Every day I could go to meetings. I could go to two some days. I mean, it was incredible. And I heard people share about how they did this day after day, how they didn't eat no matter what. And that's what I wanted, right? And that's what I got. And for 7 years, I lived in Boston and enjoyed that time and those people and that I just loved it. Sponsored a lot of people. I just loved it. And then I moved to Taos, which was a dream of mine, to be a writer and to just live a more creative life. So I was the recipient of the Helena Wurlitzer Foundation residency. I could live for 2 months in Taos, New Mexico, and only pay for my food. I mean, I got my own little casita. I was in heaven, absolute heaven. And I stayed abstinent, and I had lots of phone contacts, and there wasn't Zoom meetings yet. I tried phone meetings, but I didn't do very well. And then after I'd been there for a couple of years, Laura L moved to Taos, and I got to go to meetings. We started this Taos meeting that's still going on Zoom now, but Tao of Taos, and often it was just the two of us. But sometimes people would come in and lose weight and leave, and that's the way it went. But now there are like 4 or 5 GreySheeters in Taos. Laura had to move away, so that's just um, one less than that. But the Tao of Taos meeting is just great, and it's Friday night on Zoom, and please come if you ever want to. It's a great little meeting. Um, but what happened was over the course of my years in Taos, I was just doing the bare minimum. I had gotten all this recovery, rich recovery in Cambridge. And then I was in an outpost, and there was one other person, and I talked on the phone to people and stuff, but it just wasn't the same. And the phone meetings, I'm sorry, but I just, I would be doing something else while I was listening on the phone. It just didn't work for me. So what happened was there was this one, I mean, I was still sponsoring and still sponsored, and I still called my food in every day, and I was still abstinent. But I wasn't calling in food changes. My sponsor didn't say I needed to do that. After a while, I mean, I had a lot of time. And I just got out of the habit of calling in food emergencies. And there was this one night from hell where I was at a restaurant that I didn't know all that well. I knew I'd gone and had been able to be abstinent, but I was there, and the table was probably as big as my laptop, and it was dark. I couldn't see my scale. They didn't bring enough veggies. I had to keep ordering stuff, and I kept forgetting how much. Anyway, at some point in this horrible from hell experience, I said, that's got to be good enough. It's all abstinent food. I don't know exactly how much my vegetable. I don't know how much I've weighed my. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I just ate my food, and I was with my husband, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "Are you sure that's okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's good enough. Oh yeah." And he never heard me say that in all the time that he'd been with me, and he'd only known me abstinent. So anyway, the next morning I realized what I had done. I did think about calling somebody, but then I thought, oh, they're just going to tell me I have to start over or whatever. Like I just I just did not have enough experience with doing that to realize that somebody could help me stay abstinent at this meal right now. I just didn't have that. And I wasn't willing. So the next morning, I called in my food, left it on my sponsor's um, message machine, and then realized that, oh my God, I'm not abstinent. That wasn't abstinent. So I called her back, and I talked to her, and I told her what I had done, and she said, "Oh, I don't know what to do about this. I mean, what do you think?" And I said, "I don't know, but if I don't know." She said, "Well, what would you say to a sponsee of yours if they did this?" And I said, "I don't know, but I know I should have made a phone call. I know I should have made a phone call." And I didn't want to give up almost 20 years, but she said, "Well, why don't you pray about it and call me back?" And when I prayed about it and called her back, I told her that I really think I need to be on day one. And she said, "I do too." And so I started on day one. And what I realized was that I didn't have enough of a network. I had let the support that I need to be gray sheet abstinent get threadbare, and I fell through. And I'm grateful that I didn't pick up a compulsive bite and after that meal. Like I didn't go out and say, oh, well, screw it, I might as well just eat a whole bunch of crap. I didn't do that. I got right back on the beam. But something really significant changed when I admitted that I had done that thing, and I got much more involved in service, and I got to know a whole lot more about our wonderful organization. And for years, I was just doing a whole lot of stuff, being a GSR and meaning it, and joining committees and getting, all of that stuff, being part of an intergroup. And I, I have to say, I am so grateful that number one, I didn't pick up more food and I didn't take a whole long time to come back. And number two, that the abstinence that I have today feels really solid and strong. And, with the pandemic now, there's Zoom and everything. It's just great. And I'm just really, really grateful that I didn't have to go and weigh, put on 50 pounds to come to the truth again. And my time's up. So that's it. Thank you. It's great to be here.